Who knew that making a holistic masterclass on vision optimization could blow up into such chaos? My name is Samantha Lotus, and maybe you've heard of me from whatever news source that you read online, and maybe you've seen that I am the quacky, crazy, scammer, bad, whatever, insert negative adjective person that is telling people that they can improve their eyesight, but that is completely false and a quack and a scam and all of these different things. Well, that blew my mind because for the past 15 years, I've been working in the field of holistic wellness and human optimization. And not only did I feel it was a theory, but it was actually in practice that I've helped myself and my clients and some of my family members as well stop needing glasses. And so I thought it was just evident. When we look at how the human body works and we look at what happens when different parts of the body degenerate, we almost always can find a solution when we look to holistic health, to holistic empowerment, to holistic improvement. And so it's so interesting to me how people will accept that other parts of the body can heal and regenerate, but when it comes to the eyes, apparently it is just the biggest conspiracy theory. So after having what would be called a cancellation, or how people like to call it accountability, which I understand, you know, people are good and they don't want other people to be scamming people or taking advantage of people. So I totally understand that, and I really have compassion for the whole situation. And over the last couple of weeks, I have dove in deep into the field of holistic vision. I've even been able to interview one of the top experts in the field. I've had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Rudrani Banik. She is an integrative neuro-ophthalmologist, a keynote speaker, best-selling author, and founder of the Envision Health New York City. She's known as America's integrative ophthalmologist. She has over 20 years in practice. So this woman is the specialist of specialists when it comes to eye care. I'm so excited to bring you this interview. It not only validated what I knew to be true, but it also blew open this need for discussion around emerging fields of medicine and how the general consensus is to suppress it or to discredit it. But the field of integrated ophthalmology isn't this spiritual woo-woo, it's actually a field of medicine. And what's wild is that even within ophthalmology itself, there's this unwillingness to look at different ways of looking and visioning and improving and working in eye care and ophthalmology. And so this interview is just such a blessing. I'm so grateful. It has opened my eyes and fueled my passion to go even deeper into one of the untapped areas of health. Check it out. I am so excited to have you on today, Dr. Rudrani. I know that we have just met and I came across you on Instagram and I dove deep into your research as to what you do and how you're helping people in your specialization. And it's something that I just knew people needed to hear more about. And so I'm so grateful to have you here. And thank you so much for being willing to come on and have a conversation and to share your genius.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Samantha. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. I love your message and what you're trying to share with the world. So I'm happy to be part of it.
Thank you so much. So I would love if you start off with, tell us a little bit about your specialization, your background, the company that you own. Tell us what you want to get us started with. Let us know you a little bit.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Rudrani Banik. I'm a board certified ophthalmologist, and I also did a fellowship in neuro-ophthalmology. So all those amazing connections between our brain, how we process vision, and the eyes, how we actually, the apparatus that allows us to see. So it's that merge of neurology and ophthalmology. And then after some time, I realized the importance of other aspects to our eye health and our overall health, aspects that pertain to our lifestyle, our nutrition, our mindset. So I ended up getting certified in integrative and functional medicine. So now I bring it all together. So I have my traditional training, medical and surgical traditional training in eye health and brain health, but then I bring in all of these other aspects of health that are within our control. Some things may not be within our control, but many things are in our control. And I try to, with my protocols, with my patient care, I really try to integrate it all into a smooth kind of a holistic approach to vision health.
That is so amazing. And this is the exact reason why I decided to reach out to you is I don't think I found almost anyone else that is a eye specialist with your medical background who is also integrating the functional medicine. We see this a lot in nutrition or in regular medical care, but in the eye specialization, this is quite unique, right? There's not many people doing this.
Yeah, there aren't that many of us who are dual certified. I mean, there are some people a handful who've done functional medicine training. There are also some people who've done like anti-aging training with respect to vision health, but there aren't that many of us. And one of my goals is actually to raise awareness of this and to basically create a field and have people learn more about it, because my colleagues in the eye care space, both ophthalmologists, optometrists, we don't have training in this. We really don't. And so I think it's really important to be able to understand like how we can use some of these other approaches to improve our vision health and how we can counsel our patients, because that's really, really so much a part of vision health is the counseling aspect.
This is something that I imagine almost nobody knows about. Most people don't even know how the eye works because, well, if we don't have your specialization, we would have never learned that. And most people believe that that vision happens just from the eyeball. Somehow the eyeball takes in the picture and that's how we see. But I would love from your perspective, and I know that you could probably go on for hours and hours, but if you could break it down into a simple understanding, how do we actually see?
Yeah, so it's really such an amazing system that's developed, that's evolved, our visual system. So yes, the eye captures light, and the eye is actually very complex. It's a small organ. It's about the size of a golf ball, but it has over 40 working parts. So it's phenomenal how the eye has kind of evolved to do this, to capture light. But then the eye doesn't actually process that light. So that input that's coming in gets converted from light energy into electrical energy. It gets sent through the optic nerve to the brain. And the brain is what's responsible for processing all of this visual information. So form, color, resolution, depth, it's all managed by the brain. And here's an interesting statistic. Over 50% of our brain is dedicated to our visual pathways. Over 50%. So how we process all of that vision, how we read, how we recognize faces, how we move our eyes. If we're looking in a particular direction, we have to coordinate our eyes to move them together. That's all taken care of by the brain. So it's really phenomenal. It's really a miracle of vision that allows us to see, integrating the eye plus the brain. It's amazing.
That is so wonderful. It really is. A story that I share often is my little brother was in a near fatal motorcycle accident, doing stunts and things, and he had severe brain damage, and the nerves were both severely damaged to his eyes, and one of his eyes, while he was in a coma for months, was completely closed. They said he would never see again. He would never regain his vision, and now he has regained his vision to the point where he's able to even drive a car with the aid of one bifocal that can help him. And it's a special reflector, but it's so incredible. They call it a medical miracle. They don't know how it happened, but it's just amazing how the body, maybe miracle, maybe there's other factors, but how it can regenerate itself. And in some cases it can be strengthened. And that's something that I'm really curious to chat with you about are there ways that we can strengthen our eyesight or strengthen the way that the brain interprets vision or strengthen in terms of integrative practices? Like, what are some things that you advise and that you've seen that we can do that create that positive benefit when it comes to eyesight and vision?
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that story, and I hope your brother's doing well. So just related to the story, in the past, it used to be thought that the brain, once it gets damaged, that's it. It's damaged forever. You can't regenerate nerve cells. You can't regenerate pathways. Now we really realize that there is this concept of neuroplasticity that is real. And so, yes, we can try to retrain our brain or rejuvenate parts of the brain that maybe have not been functioning at full capacity. So, for example, if someone has a concussion or if they have any other kind of trauma, sometimes it's not necessarily physical trauma, sometimes it's mental trauma, spiritual trauma. Just there are many other types of trauma that can cause our brain's pathways not to be fully functional. And again, the brain is responsible for over 50% of our vision, so that's so much a part of it. But what I think to kind of get to answer your question is that if you try to utilize pathways that may not be the direct pathway, maybe there's an alternate pathway, and try to rely on that. If you've lost vision or you have some double vision or maybe some other symptom. So there's a condition, I'll just share this with you. There's a condition called visual snow syndrome. And it's called VSS for short, where people see this static overlay over their entire vision of kind of like, in old analog TV screens, you used to see kind of that speckled gray and white pattern. So that's what people see. And I have this syndrome myself. So I have visual snow. I know exactly what it is, but it's imagine like an entire overlay of shimmering gray and white dots over your vision. And it's there all the time. So when people first notice this symptom, it's very debilitating. It causes so much anxiety and, what's going on? Am I losing my vision? Am I going to go blind? The good news is that, yes, it's there, but people don't go blind from this, but there are ways to retrain your brain to not be debilitated by this symptom. So even despite having this constant snow, this constant static in your vision, you can still function. You can still use your other pathways to be able to see clearly and function. So for example, I tell my patients who are really, who come in with visual snow, they're very distraught, they're very, very scared. And I tell them, look, I have this as well, and I still am able to do everything I need to do. I still can read, I can use a device, I can drive, I can operate, I can still do surgery despite having visual snow. So part of it is learning to retrain your brain, but also part of it is mindset. Not being so, I don't want to say bogged down, but kind of overwhelmed by what's going on in your visual system, and trying to get past that and say, yes, I may have this issue, I may have this deficit where I'm not seeing well, or this other problem with my vision, but I can use other ways to get around it and still be able to do everything I need to do. So there is, it's a process. It's not something overnight that you can do, but I would say over a certain amount of time, it's probably in the range of months to years, you can retrain your brain to be able to see clearly, and even still sometimes see 20/20 despite some of these issues.
That's amazing. And I really appreciate that you touched on the fear aspect and the mindset aspect. One of the things that I see in my practice with my clients is one of the main limiting beliefs or factors that inhibit them from having their healing experience is fear. Because when we are in fear, it keeps our nervous system in the sympathetic dominant state of fight or flight. And we know that when we're in chronic fight or flight, it exacerbates symptoms because our body doesn't have the ability to be in that rest and digest and to heal. And so fear and mindset is such a major factor in any symptom or in any bodily function, I would say. And it sounds like that's what you're also doing.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought up the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, because that really, it does, I think, almost puts a hindrance to people getting past their issue. And also it creates so much anxiety, and it becomes almost like a vicious cycle where people have a vision problem. They get really scared of what's going on. They're fearful that they may go blind. They develop anxiety and they become hyper-focused on it. And I think when people become hyper-focused on a particular symptom, whether it's vision or something else, that really escalates it. And it kind of puts it into this other category where it becomes really, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And then it just feeds upon itself. And I think number one, to try to get, if you're experiencing a symptom that's really frightening or scary, try to get your body to relax, to try to activate more of those parasympathetic pathways, whether it's through meditative breathing, whether it's through yoga or some other discipline, maybe just taking a walk, listening to music. Try to get your body to relax and calm down, and then try to reassess it. Because I think the whatever it is, it's like a monster that's kind of, is lurking in the background. It's your mindset that can help you get past that, or deal with it. And you don't want to ignore it, but you want to be able to manage it and not be limited and restricted by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Two of the things that I teach are EFT tapping to change those neural pathways, and then also hypnotherapy. It has been shown to be really effective at some of those things. So though it is very empowering to know, oh, there are things that we can do to help our mindset, which we know epigenetically is connected to every single organ in our body, and that can actually help us. It can either perpetuate the issue or it can help us to regenerate. But there are other things that in my research on vision and on eyesight that I dove into, and I wanted to ask your opinion on some of them. My background, I'm a certified nutritional practitioner, and we learn a lot about nutrition and the body, and that encapsulates eyesight as well. And would you say there's any correlation between nutrition and vision?
Oh, absolutely. This is my favorite topic to share, because nutrition really impacted my own health journey. And ever since I, turned my health around, I use nutrition as the cornerstone for all of my patient care, really, and protocols. When it comes to eye health, so I in my book, I have a book that I just published called Beyond Carrots: Best Foods for Eye Health A to Z. So in my book, I break down what are the important classes of nutrients our eyes need to stay healthy. So everybody immediately thinks, oh, carrots, if I just eat enough carrots, I'll be fine. That's the tip of the iceberg. Yes, carrots are important. They provide beta carotene, but there are over 30 nutrients we need to keep our eyes healthy. And there are many, many foods that provide those nutrients. So if you can support your eyes nutritionally to prevent against oxidative stress, to prevent against inflammation in your eyes, to help with mitochondrial function, to help with energy production, you are already, I would say, 80% of the way there in terms of having supporting your eyes for healthy eyesight for a lifetime. So with nutrition, you can prevent conditions. You can prevent vision loss from things like cataracts, from macular degeneration, from dry eye. These are very, very common conditions that people develop especially as they get older, but it can even, like, for example, dry eye can even happen to younger individuals. But nutrition can help to fight against these conditions. And it really should be more talked about. It's not yet. And again, another reason I wrote the book is not just to educate the public, but also my colleagues who have not gotten formal nutrition education. Through my functional and integrative medicine training, I did learn a tremendous amount about nutrition that I was never taught in medical school or residency or fellowship. So I'm really fortunate that I was able to learn that. And then I also took it another step, in writing the book. I did a really deep dive into nutrition about plant-based compounds that are called bioflavonoids, which protect plants against infection or inflammation or disease. But when we ingest these types of compounds, they also get, those benefits get conferred to our body and conferred to our eyes. So we can reap those benefits of these bioflavonoids by eating foods that are rich in these bioflavonoids. So that's really a cornerstone of good eye health, is to have a nutrient-rich diet really based in these bioflavonoids, based in plants. And I always try to tell patients I recommend a plant-rich diet. You don't necessarily have to be plant-based. You don't have to be vegan or vegetarian, but have a plant-rich diet to support your eye health, and also to support your brain and all the rest of your body as well. So it's a win-win for everyone when you're eating for your eyes.
This is such a win for me, receiving on my end with my background and love and passion and knowingness, how much the body needs nutrition. I feel we've come so far from our connection to earth. Most people forget that the water we drink that we need for our hydration is from the earth. The air that we breathe is from the trees. The food that we eat grows in the soil of the earth. Every single function of our body requires both minerals and vitamins, and we need those things, and we're not separate to those things. So of course they would have supportive benefits for our bodies and our eyes as well. And what are your thoughts on magnesium? I'm a big pro magnesium. My belief is everyone needs magnesium. We're so deficient in it because of the farming practices and our soil and our water and the filtration. I recommend magnesium pretty much to everyone. Would you say that magnesium has a role in eye health as well?
Absolutely. So magnesium, is one of my favorite nutrients because it's responsible for so many processes in the body. And it does play a key role in mitochondrial function to keep our mitochondria healthy for energy production. And we need that both for our eyes and our brain. So I typically do recommend for most people supplementing with magnesium. And for vision health and brain health, if you're going to, it's always best to get it from food. But as you mentioned, our agricultural practices have depleted our soil from so many nutrients, including magnesium. So if you're going to supplement, I typically recommend a chelated form of magnesium if you're doing it for eye health, brain health, because that chelated form will be able to get into the tissue that it's intended to. Now, if you wanted it for other reasons, let's say for digestive health, or then you should take a magnesium salt or maybe a combination of a chelated form of magnesium and a salt. And in my practice, I also manage a lot of migraine, which is an eye brain issue. And so magnesium does wonders for migraine. And when I first started on my health journey with my migraine, and that's kind of how I became introduced to nutrition, I relied on magnesium in so many different forms. So I had foods with magnesium. I took a supplement. I used magnesium oils to help calm down my muscles and the irritated nerves. I mean, it was really phenomenal, the impact of magnesium. So I recommend it for everyone, even children. Many times they'll get, fatigued muscles, cramps, even younger people. So magnesium is a great way to counteract that naturally without having to take any particular prescription medications. And I'll add one more thing. I also happen to have restless leg syndrome, and I love magnesium for that because almost immediately, like when I start to have, this kind of feeling like my legs are really irritated and restless, I take some magnesium and it just almost immediately, it just calms it down. It just relaxes everything, and it's wonderful.
I suffered for years. I'm very, very tall. I'm 6 feet. I suffered for years waking up with these leg cramps, mega leg cramps. And my family was just said, my doctor said, oh, it's because you're tall. You grew fast. But I had this for years and years and years. And when I got into athletics, I started to take magnesium as per my coach's recommendation, and my leg cramps went away. And this brought me down this path of learning everything I could about magnesium. And what we like to tell people is every flexion requires some form of calcium, and every relaxation of the body requires some form of magnesium. And so for anyone that clenches or that has these headaches or any kind of tension in the body, restless legs or the eye twitches or anything where we can't relax, well, taking magnesium can be wonderful for that. So thank you so much.
I'm so glad you brought up the eye twitches, because I oftentimes see people coming in saying, oh, my eyelid's been twitching for like now, over a month, and I don't know what to do, what's going on. And in most cases, it is some kind of magnesium deficiency, because I tell them to supplement, and within a short period of time, their twitches go away, or facial twitches, for example. So it can be very, very powerful and very inexpensive and very safe.
Yes, love that. So everyone watching this, you've heard it from me a million times. Go get your magnesium. Great. So the other thing that I thought was really fascinating was the statistics on the development of myopia, specifically in children, and how I think the statistic, I'm going to get this wrong, but it was something like 50% more in the Western world. These children are developing myopia than in developing nations. I thought that was interesting. The other thing that I was reading upon was the connection with light and myopia. One of the studies, or various of the studies, was that just sleeping with a nightlight on for children can actually increase the possibility of them developing myopia. And so there were suggestions on sleeping in the complete dark. And then the other studies I was reading and the research I was doing on the connection between getting daily sunlight on the eyes for eye health and for brain health. And so I'd love to hear your take on light, both at nighttime, how we're sleeping, maybe even for children or for people in general, and then also with daily light and the importance of that for eye health.
Yeah, this topic is fascinating to me. It really is. And it goes back to kind of evolution and how our eyes developed and how our body rhythms are. So yes, myopia is a major health concern across the world. Right now, across the world, it's about 30% of the population is myopic. It's crazy, 30%. Wow. And by the year 2050, it's estimated to be 50% of the world's population will be myopic. Now, what's triggering this? I mean, didn't used to be like this. So one theory is that, if you think back to our ancestors, a lot of their life was spent kind of looking out in the distance, looking, surveying their land, making sure that they were safe, not being vulnerable. So they, most of their world was at a distance. And sometimes, yes, they had to look up close, but they certainly weren't reading for hours a day on a screen like we do, focused, for 7 to 10 hours a day on, up close here. So it's the theory, this hypothesized that up close work, near work, stimulates our muscles of accommodation so much that the eye starts to lengthen. And then when the eye lengthens, it causes myopia or nearsightedness. So that's the current theory, especially in children, because children's eyes are very malleable. They're very soft, and they can expand, they can lengthen at really high rates. And so in terms of your question about light and the impact of light. So this research is very new. It's still in its infancy, but what we do know is that when children are exposed to natural sunshine during normal daytime hours, and are outside playing, like we would love for them all to be instead of being on screens, that can reduce the progression of myopia. So studies have shown that school-age children, if they spend at least 2 hours a day outside, 2 hours a day playing outside, either whether it's sunny or even if it's not sunny, then they have reduced rates of myopia. And so now, depending on the country, there are certain countries where they mandate 2 hours of outdoor time a day during the school day, which is phenomenal. It's amazing. And I wish more countries would adopt that, but it's hard to implement something like that, I guess. But think about that for your children. Now, in terms of the night issue, so basically, when you have indoor light at night, a lot of it is blue light. Whether it's a bulb, and now we're using energy-saving bulbs like LED bulbs or CFL bulbs. Yes, they save energy, but they emit a tremendous amount of blue light compared to the older style bulbs like incandescent bulbs. They emit very little blue light. That blue light, our eyes and our brain are wired to pick up that blue light and to tell our brain that, oh, we should be awake. And so exposure to blue light later on in the day, especially 2 hours before bedtime, can interfere with sleep. It can affect our circadian rhythm. In children, it's also been linked to focusing and attention issues, and perhaps even ADHD. So it's really, really important if you have kids to really limit their blue light exposure. Now, the link between blue light exposure and myopia, which you cited that one study, it's really interesting. The exact mechanism by which blue light may cause an increase in myopia, I can't necessarily explain, because daytime blue light is good, but nighttime blue light, I'm not really sure how that interferes with accommodation and our circadian rhythms and what's triggering the myopia. So I think that research still needs to be teased out a little bit. But for the other health aspects, especially in kids, it's really, really prudent to try to limit your blue light exposure. It's so common, we're all on our phones and devices really late into the day, but maybe try to modulate that, maybe change your bulb. So one great tip I have, and we actually use these in our home as well, we have smart bulbs. So the smart bulb knows, when the sun is rising, when the sun is setting. So later on in the day, especially after the sun is set, it will adjust the temperature of the light to give more reddish orange hues rather than the cooler tones. So you're limiting the amount of blue light that you're getting in your home at night.
That's such a wonderful tip. That's something that we do in our home as well. We have an app, the Hue app, and the special smart bulbs, and we can adjust them, or they can adjust by themselves. And the other thing that especially being a part of the bio-optimization or biohacking world, everyone walks around with their amber blue blocking glasses. And that's something I really advocate for. And especially for women, the studies are showing that for women, the exposure to blue light, not just for vision, but also for hormones and our infradian and our circadian rhythm. And so just even wearing yellow or amber blue blockers, especially if it's past, sundown, say that's 6 p.m. or 4 p.m. if you're in Canada in the winter, or 8 p.m. if you're, somewhere in Europe. But even just having that can be something that would be great for blocking those those blue lights? Do you wear blue blockers?
I can tell you from personal experience that when I'm working late into the night, which unfortunately I do have to do sometimes, so I'm on my computer late, and I have trouble sleeping. I notice that, when I don't wear my deeper pigmented blue blocker. So the lighter ones, the yellow tinted ones, block maybe only about 20 to 30% of the blue light. But if you get a deeper tint, preferably the deep amber or even deep red, that's almost blocking 100% of the blue light. And when I wear those at night, it does make a difference, because then when I do finally, get ready to go to bed, it's much easier for me to fall asleep when I'm not exposed to all of that blue light. A quick tip on how you can gauge whether your blue blocker is working well for you or not is simply to put them on and look at the color blue on your screen. If you can still see the blue, then you know that it's not that those glasses, those tints are not fully blocking the blue light. But if you put on a deeper color, you'll notice that it's really hard to tell blue on a screen. You almost can't perceive it, which tells you that that blue blocker is probably blocking 98 or 99% of the blue light. So quick and simple test you can do at home about, to see if your blue blocker is good for you or not late into the day. And sometimes you may even want to wear a blue blocker during the day, perhaps a lighter tint. So I have a whole collection of glasses of tints. And so I sometimes change them out depending on how my eyes are feeling that day. If I'm feeling a lot of strain, I'm feeling light sensitivity, and I know I have to be on a screen, I'll put on a lighter tint blue blocker during the day even. And it's not going to necessarily interfere with my circadian rhythm because it's not blocking all of the blue light. I wouldn't wear the red ones during the day, but the lighter ones, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I think I'm going to try to squeeze in 2.5 more questions, if that's okay. Sure. Do you still have a little time?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So one of the things that I was exploring was if there was a connection between emotions and maybe even emotional trauma and how that represents in the body. And from my experience, I know that it can affect many different things, from digestion, like IBS, to hormone imbalances, to mood disorders. But I was wondering if there was a correlation between eyesight and vision as well as emotional trauma. And there was not a lot of research on this. I had found a few papers that could maybe make some connections, a few publications. I went down the research into German New Medicine that really puts a connection between the eye and emotional conflicts is what they call it. I'm wondering your perspective. Do you think that there could be a connection between emotional trauma or emotional stress or emotional conflicts and how that affects our visual perception or our eyesight?
Absolutely. So it has not really been published or really studied extensively, but I can tell you, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and many patients, when they come in and they're, I could tell there's, they're something's bothering them. And I ask them, what's going on? They may say, oh, I'm coming in, my vision is so blurry, I can't see, or it's coming and going. And, I can tell they're really very much at unease. And I ask them, what's going on in your life? And almost 100% of the time, there will be some kind of stressor. In many cases, it is emotional stress. Maybe it's a relationship, something going on at home, or maybe it's work, some stressor at work, or a health issue that they're having, but it's manifesting as difficulty seeing. And, when I explain this to them, and I explain to my patients, okay, your vision, well, first of all, I obviously examine them and I check their vision. And in most cases, their vision is really not that much different than their previous visits, but they're subjectively experiencing it as very poor vision, difficulty focusing, trouble reading, they can't drive anymore. And a lot of the time it is because of their emotional state. And so what I counsel them about is a lot of what we talked about earlier is trying to get your body to shift from, yes, you may have had some emotional stress, emotional trauma, or, again, it could be physical trauma or spiritual trauma, but try to shift their body from a sympathetic fight or flight state to a more parasympathetic rest and digest state. And when they're able to shift, their vision stabilizes. And
wow.
I
just want to pause there for a second, because that is monumentous, right? I want to, for everyone listening, when they were able to shift, their vision shifted.
Yes.
That's correct, right? Wow. Okay.
Dynamic.
So
Our vision is dynamic. We don't see the same every single day. Every day is different. And even during the day, there may be times during the day when your vision you have more clarity with your vision than other times of the day. And a lot of it has to do with our mental state, I can't even like put it into words properly, but how we are doing overall, not just physically our health or physically our eyes. It's overall, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, everything put together impacts our vision. And if you can work on those aspects of your health, it will improve your eye health. And in the I was explaining earlier, in the eye care world, when patients have trauma of whatever type, they come in with vision loss, and we examine them. Their eye exam is stable. There's no new vision change. There's no retinal detachment or optic nerve issue. We put them in this category of functional vision loss. Now, functional meaning that something is going on that's not allowing them to function normally as they did before. And in many cases, it's not something we can put a finger on. It's not something that we can diagnose and saying, oh, this is exactly where the pathway is interrupted, or this is where the problem is. It's multiple layers of other things going on that's impacting their functionality. And so I really want to make this point, is that eye care providers in the past would see patients like this and say, it's just all in their head. Yes, it is in their head, but not in a derogatory way, in a sense that there is some other block. There's something else that's preventing this person from seeing clearly. And how can we get them back to a state where they can regain what they had lost, what they had before, regain what they lost, get them back to their baseline state of what they had before. And I think more and more eye care providers are realizing the impact of acknowledging that, first of all, that it's not a psychiatric problem. It's something real. Yes, we can't put our finger and say, okay, this is the diagnosis, but it falls into this category of functional vision loss. And it's not faking, because I think a lot of eye doctors in the past would put this in the category that patients they're making it up. It's not real. It is real. And we need to acknowledge that it's not something else.
And that's the thing with, I feel, a lot of allopathic medicine is, if you can't measure it, well, you can't explain it. It must just be in their head. It must be made up. It must be just swept to the side. But this is where the integrative part and the mind-body connection, and looking at maybe epigenetics and looking at metaphysics, there is a role. And it's so refreshing and validating for me to have this conversation with you. I know I shared with you a little bit. I had put together a holistic vision healing masterclass, and maybe the word healing was a little bit triggering. It was meant to be on the metaphysical mind body as well as the physical. But there was a ton of amazing positive feedback. I had 500 people sign up to this masterclass being like, oh, I know that this is possible. I know that there's a connection. I want to learn more. Nobody's speaking about this. And then there was a major backlash with every single left media source has written about me in an extremely derogatory way, saying that I'm crazy, I'm a quack, I'm just trying to scam people. There's no way to improve vision. There's nothing that affects it. There's no connection to nutrition. There's no connection to emotions. And I thought, I was actually quite shocked to see the immensity of the backlash and people trying to destroy my credibility in every single way, because maybe I'm not an eye doctor, or whatever other reasons they wanted to, because of how I looked or how I spoke or any other reason. But it really made me question and identify and really look into just all of the systems that I feel are kind of oppressing the integrative way of looking at health. And I was just wondering if you had experienced any of that, or if you have come up with any resistance when you're sharing about these other ways that you could be looking at health, or if maybe you have an understanding of why there's so much skepticism to this. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Sure. So first of all, I really congratulate you for doing what you're doing, because I think it's so important to get this message out there. And I can relate to, some of the backlash that you experienced. And what I'll say is, you're a disruptor. right? And people have their pre-trained ways of thinking, and you're coming in with disruptive ideas, but you're helping people. And even if you help one person, that's worth it. It makes it all worth it. And so in my work, that's kind of how I feel. So when I ended up, when I first started researching about nutrition and I changed my practice, I actually quit my job. I was full-time faculty at Mount Sinai, and I quit my job to open up my practice to be able to spend the time with my patients, to be able to work with them on a really deeper level, on a one-on-one level, to be able to share this information with them. I knew I couldn't do it within the confines of an academic practice. I had to do it on my own terms. And so when I did that, I got a lot of criticism. Why are you doing this? You're a neuro-ophthalmologist, you're an academician, you do research, and now you're doing this other stuff, this kind of loosey-goosey stuff. And nobody outright said that, but that was kind of the impression that I got when I was telling my colleagues, this is what I'm doing. And, some of them just said, okay, good luck. Others were a little bit curious, but the majority were just kind of like, okay, that's not what we do. You can do what you're doing, but that's not what we do. And I'll never forget when I first decided to open my practice, I printed out business cards. I got new business cards. And, I said what I did. I do integrative ophthalmology. And I also wrote on the business card, I wrote holistic migraine wellness. And I'll never forget, I showed it to one of my colleagues, and he was a retina specialist. He's a dear friend, but he looked at it. He said, ooh, holistic migraine wellness. What is this voodoo you're doing? And I said, it's not voodoo.
Oh, I know. I know.
And I was kind of shocked that he would say that to me, but that, it was kind of a good wake-up call that I think traditionally trained providers, mainly MDs in my experience, are very critical, very skeptical of some of these other approaches to health, whether it's using nutrition, whether it's taking a supplement and using nature's healing, herbs, botanicals, nature's way of healing. Some of them are just very opposed to it. Others have a little bit more of an open mind, but my goal again is to open up more people's minds to allowing their patients to explore these options. And maybe they're not trained in it, but at least they can refer out their patients to other providers who may be trained in it. And so that's kind of my approach is, yes, there is skepticism. There's another thing I want to share with you. So when I published my book, I've been talking to some of my colleagues about, maybe going to their department and giving a grand rounds talk. Like, can I please come give a talk about nutrition and eye health and the importance of optimizing nutrition for our eyes? I've gotten some people who have just said, well, that's really interesting, but it's not really on our radar right now. And I said, well, it's kind of shocking that it's not on your radar because this is what people are asking for. When I talk to my colleagues, so many of them tell me, yeah, my patients were asking me about nutrition, what they can do, what they should be eating to support their eyes, what else they can do to support their eyes. And they basically say, I don't know, go ask Dr. Banik because I have no idea about this. So I'm like, but patients are asking you, right? They're asking you for this information. And why aren't you able to provide it to them? And it's not on people's radar. And I'll tell you why. This is a very unfortunate reason why, because there is no big pharmaceutical company behind it. There is no big biotech company behind it. It's food. It's nutrients. There is no big money behind this movement. And so that's why there is some resistance because it's not being supported. And doctors aren't going to be compensated for their time counseling patients about nutrition, et cetera, lifestyle. So it kind of gets put on the back burner. Rather, it's much easier to do a surgery and to try to fix somebody than to use some of these other healing modalities to try to help someone not need the surgery. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, where we're at right now. And again, I've gotten some backlash, maybe not as much as you have. And I feel for you because it's really hard. It's really, really hard as a provider who wants to benefit their clients, their patients, and comes up with these types of, these types of walls that get put up. But I think we just have to keep doing it. And people will listen. And again, my thought is, even if I help one person in the room, I've done my job.
Well, you are the epitome of what it is to be an ultimate pioneer in your field. And in my perspective, my opinion, this is exactly what we need on this planet. And if I take it back into my history, my degrees are in honors sociology and psychology. And one of my favorite class was the sociology of medicine. That was so fascinating to me to see how medicine has changed over the years, and to see how it went from doctors used to be like the philosophers, the original doctors used to teach about nutrition and about lifestyle and about stress. And then that made a major shift. And we won't get into the conspiracy rabbit hole on that, but there is a domination by the educational systems and the medical systems and the government systems, and what they want to provide as tools and solutions, and what they don't want to provide. And you really nailed it with what we can patent and what we can't, and we cannot put a patent on nature. And that's a fundamental law we have on this planet, and it goes up much further.
And it's accessible to everyone.
Exactly.
That's the other thing. It's accessible. You don't have to pay. You don't have to use your insurance to access it.
And most doctors, like you said, are not taught. You know, my best friend is a doctor, and she's recently switched over to holistic medicine, and she didn't ever learn about magnesium or turmeric or about even carrots. She didn't learn about any of that. Dehydration. There's not education around that, and often you're taught not to even be open to those things because it's woo-woo, it's voodoo, it's witchcraft, it's just not important. And so having these kind of conversations and the work that you're doing is so monumentally important, because as we're seeing, we're actually devolving, I believe, for the first time. You know, the life expectancy is getting shorter. We're seeing these health crises that are widespread around the world, and we're seeing the development of myopia 10x fold, 100x fold. It's not normal that humans are becoming sicker and sicker and sicker. And while there's a lot of advancements in technology and in biomedicine and the medical world, well, there's still things that are not being addressed. And so I think the perfect marriage is to have the medical background with the integrative background, with the holistic background, to really look at it and to bridge these worlds so that we can actually help people. And so I want to just really thank you for the bravery, the courage, and the excellence that you have in your journey, and just what you're doing and what you're bringing to your patients and your community.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. That really means a lot. And I love how you just put that all together. It is so, so true. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and we just need to teach our patients, our clients, how to access it and promote health. I think that's the bottom line, is we're all in it to live a healthier, just more vital, happier life. And this is the way to do it, I think.
So where can people connect with you, learn more about you, purchase your book? Where are the main ways that they can connect with you? And then I'll make sure that wherever I show this, that we will have that all linked in the show notes.
Sure. So the best way to connect with me is through my website. So Rudrani Banik, .com, and through there you can find all the links to my books. I have online courses as well. So I have a course called Ageless Eyes by Dr. Rani. So I teach people how to navigate their way through aging changes with their vision. And then I have my supplement line. So all of that's available there. And then also, if you happen to be on Instagram, please take a look at my account. I share a lot of tips on eye health and also migraine and brain health on there. So.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your beautiful energy and your wisdom with us. It's so appreciated.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching, for listening, for being a part of this conversation. If you found this interesting, go ahead and give it a like, give it a comment. You can subscribe, maybe even share this with a friend, especially if it's somebody that's in the medical field or even in the holistic field. This is a topic and a conversation that gets to come to this is a topic and a conversation that gets to come into the light, to come onto the surface, and to come onto the discussion table when it comes to holistic and integrative empowerment. My name is Samantha Lotus, and it has been a joy and a pleasure. See you next time.